guys, it's Teresa and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be slightly different from what I normally do, and this is partially to make up for the fact I didn't have a writing diary last month in November, but also partially because I asked if people wanted to see this on Twitter, so if you guys want to, have more say in the content that I put out, y'all should be following me on Twitter or Instagram. Just a thought. And it was whether or not anyone wanted to hear my experience with creative writing classes, and I did have a few people say that they wanted to because it'd be something interesting for them to learn about, or that they were taking a writing class in the near future and wanted to hear more about like how the function goes, because they're a little nervous. So if you guys wanted me to do more of these videos in terms of like advice for creative writing classes, or more like writing centered things in terms of like my experience with Nano, doing it last year, redrafting a book and how that's going. Aside from my normal writing diary, leave those down below. Or like I said, find me on social media. I'm not that hard to find. Everything for that will be down below. But I did come up with some notes. And while it's not a ton of notes, we all know how much I like to babble. So let's just get into the video. Alright, let me preface this by kind of talking about the types of creative writing classes that I did take during this time. So I took a total of 3 creative writing classes. I took one at the end of my sophomore year. Technically I took 4, but one was like a nonfiction writing class, and that one was pretty shitty and didn't really do anything to me. And we're just gonna shove her to the side because she wasn't even really much of a class. But I took 3 of them. I believe I took one my sophomore year when I was going into my junior year, and then I believe I took one the spring of my junior year, and then the fall of my senior year in college. I also want to say that 2 of these classes were taken in America, but the first one that I took at the end of my sophomore year was during a summertime class when I studied abroad in Ireland. So I will be talking a little bit about that as well, and kind of like how that worked out, because it was a shorter class in a different, country. Okay, so for that one in Ireland, this was the very first class I took. It was definitely a bit more of an intimate setting because there were I think 5 of us in the class total, 5 plus the professor, I believe. 5 of us plus the professor, which makes a total for 6. And this one was very focused on short stories and writing concisely. We had, I believe, 1,000-word short story due every week, and then we would have other assignments and readings to do leading up to that week, or like those other times that we met. A lot of it were exercise-based. We had exercises like, going out and like describing something, or like writing about an emotion or a feeling and doing that, or like comedy or dialogue. For the most part, we got to write about whatever we wanted, but we did have like things like write 3 30-word stories, write 2 10-word stories, write a short story within like the Twitter count, which at the time was, I believe, only at 140. Yeah. And yeah, so at the end of the semester, we turned that all in. It was all typed up aside from our notes. We turned it all into a portfolio, typed it up if we needed it, and then we emailed it to our professor, and that's how we got our grade. I ended up getting a B in the class, not because my writing was particularly bad, but because there was a miscommunication between the professor and the rest of the class. All of us assumed that if you did the Twitter story, you had to do 1, but the professor assumed it confused herself and said that you had to do 3 of them, and I only did 1, so got docked down for that, but yeah. Now jumping on to the classes in America, these are about a normal size class. The professors that I knew like to keep it very small, so we didn't go over 25, maybe 30 people in the class. The first class that I took after my summer in Ireland was another short story class. We couldn't put in any of our works that we were currently working on. It had to be new short stories, and I believe the word count for those were roughly like 2,000 words, I believe. I'll double check my old assignments and then like throw the word count up there. And then for my last writing class, we could write either short stories or turn in one of our works, and it like from our novels, and it just had to be within like I think the same thing, 2,000 words around that period. For every class but the one in Ireland, you did have to apply, and by I don't know how tough your professors are, but apply in terms of like you have to turn in a short story within like say certain criteria, your grade, and then all of that. They typically would give first choices always go to students of a higher, like upperclassmen, and if it is your major, because you need the classes to pass. So, and then once you would turn your things in, this is the same for all three of them. You, depending on the class as well, because for Ireland we sat down and it was like a 3-hour class. We would sit down and read the stories, and then we would tell our critiques there. For the rest of the other two classes that were happening in America, they were due within a certain day with, like, I think 3 or 4 other people. You would have to print out how many versions there are, and then go ahead and give them to your classmates. Then they would have, I think, a day or two, because you would meet the next class period, for them to read it, mark up your manuscript, and type up like either a single page worth of notes, single space, or half a page, single space of worth of notes. You also had assignments like readings and like other exercises as well that you had to do for those classes like normal. For critiquing, you would sit either in a group of people or a circle depending on the class. I had the option of doing both in both of my classes. We sat in a group of like 5, and you would like go around the class essentially and hear other people's things, and then the other one we sat in a circle all together, and you would just kind of hear the critiques that the people would tell you as you went along, and you would get the notes and the critiques back from your manuscript, from either both your manuscript and then your their own like typed up notes. And then depending on the professor, you could either rewrite your story, make it better, or just send in a new story. Then you would put all those into a portfolio and send them away. Really easy kind of stuff, pretty basic. Professors did have a rule, like we couldn't say our story was shit, we couldn't say anything bad about our story. We had to, for my last class, the one where we could write things from our own like novels or like submit them, we had to explain what was going on in the scene and what would happen in the rest of the book. Kind of like a query letter in a sense. You know, dear reader, da 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 da. The other one, I don't remember that we had to do it, but if I'm contradicting myself, I will throw it up here somewhere. Yeah, I think that's it in terms of like oh yeah. And then the other rules would be you can't say anything terrible about the novel. Like you could, like in terms of like just plain right insulting it, you had to be like, I didn't like this part because of da 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 da. And all that stuff you had to say like, and you had to give like, I think it was for every good thing you had to say, you had to write like, for every bad thing you had to have something good. You can't all be talking shit about it, about one story, which I will also leave if I'm contradicting myself on the screen in case if that's the case. And then for my last class, we also, if something was not part of, like say, if people were just completely misreading the story at all, you can say something and like correct them, so that way the thought doesn't continue to be passed around the rest of the class. But for the most part, you had to stay silent until the very end where you could say something. But I think most people kind of came to the same conclusion that it's like, we're taking this critique as is. So that is kind of the basic structure. Sounds a little messy, but it makes sense when you think about it. And like I said, it does vary between professor and where you took it. I was fortunate enough to take it both overseas and within America, but your classes could be a little different. Now for the advice. I say advice very loosely because this is from my own personal experience and how I would kind of explain my advice to other people who are taking the classes from similar professors as mine. Your professors might be different, but I did try to make these guys pretty universal. So even if you are taking a different class with a different setup, you can still take the advice and like take it as you can consider it. My first thing is don't take anything to heart. It's just like you reading a book and you love the book so much. You love it and then you offer it to your friend to read and she doesn't love it so much. You don't take it as a personal insult. Not every story you write is going to be meant for a certain person, and you shouldn't take everyone's advice to heart either. Remember, these are people's advice coming from them saying, this is what I want your story to look like. You have the option to pick and choose that advice and say, I like this bit of advice but not this bit because I think this bit will make my story better. You don't have to take everyone's advice into heart and put them all in your story so that way everyone likes it. Something that I learned in my very last creative writing class is that creative writing classes are not for you. I know sounds a little counterproductive because you're taking the class to better yourself as a writer, and then here I am saying it's not for you. It's actually meant for everyone else. Here, when you share your stories, you get a feel for the kind of writing that you have. You get a feel for what you like and what you don't like in your own writing. And when you critique someone else's story, that's where the constructive part comes in and where you grow. These classes are meant to make you better as a critiquer. You're supposed to see the aspects of things that you may not like in a story, that you can better in a story, and like what you do and don't like and like how this writer did it. And then you take those aspects that you found well and terrible and you apply it to your own writing. But it is not, in a sense, meant to better you as a writer. It's meant to better you as a critiquer because you basically, up until you get published, you are a one-man party. You are meant to write and edit and redraft by yourself up until you get published. So this is meant to better you as your critiquer and not so much as a writer. Yes, you will be taking like writing classes that'll help kind of maneuver your writing style, but at the end of the day, your focus is the critiques, and the critiques is how you get better. But overall, you expecting people's critiques to better you as a writer is not it. It's not meant for you. It's meant for everyone else. Like, their stories are meant to better you as a critiquer and as a writer, not their advice is meant to better you as a writer. Does that make sense? I feel like it should make sense, but I don't know. This is one that I learned in my very last class, and that's because the class prior to this one, my professor was she was ready to retire. She was going from creative writing to sociology. She was studying sociology, so she was very done. And she was very much, I have a set way of how I want writing to be done. I have a set way of how I want short stories to be done. And if you didn't do it in her mold, she would not pass you. So this was kind of the mindset I think a lot of us got into after leaving her class. And that was the mindset I took forward into my last creative writing class, which was really shitty for me to have because I was in a really bad place at that point and my writing was just not doing well. And that is, do not, under any circumstances, change your writing style to please someone, professor or student or otherwise. At the end of the day, your writing is your own. Not everyone is going to love your writing style. Not everyone is going to love what you put out into the world, and that's okay. We are not going to change our writing style or what we have planned for the story because of one bad critique. And I think where a lot of people who might get into like a mindset with a bad professor or a professor who's very much like by the book and doesn't let you grow as an author, it is important for you to realize that you should not have to change. Like, yes, change your stuff for a grade, but at the end of the day, if you feel like this version was better without as many hard-ass changes as that professor said, keep it. Like, changing your style will only hurt you as a writer. It will not better you. And that is something I had to learn the hard way because now, 2 years, about 2 to 3 years after the fact, I'm still relearning the writing style that I did really well with. And that's really a big shame, and I think that's something that pisses me off about a lot of older professors is that they're very much like, if you don't do things my way, I'm not going to pass you. So you are in a mindset of like, I have to please everyone, and that's not always the case. Literally, you will hate yourself at the end of the day. And that's coming from someone who is, like I said, trying to unlearn the shitty things that my professor put into me, which eventually changed my overall writing and my view on writing. Because if I didn't do what she did, I'd end up failing a class, and I'd feel like her word was law. So, like I said, if you need to, change it for the grade, but don't sit there and think that pleasing everyone in the class is going to work, because it's not. Not everyone's going to like it, and that's okay. Segueing into that, some professors are assholes or are really cool. I had the pleasure of having a 2-to-1 ratio of having really cool professors and one really shitty professor, I think, in my mind. The two really cool ones helped us grow as writers. They made the room really fun and really energetic. The other one, like, I had more friends leave that class saying they were taking a break from creative writing classes because it was too much for them and it really hurt their mental health because the professor was so shitty. I say don't take anyone's advice from them from heart, to heart. Because the asshole professor has a way of doing things that have worked, and it might be really outdated, and the really cool professor might have things that have worked, but still might not work for you. So like, consider their advice, because they do come from published areas. Most of these professors are published. One of my professors Both of them have published novels. One's a really well-known short story author in Ireland, I think. So you just have to sit there and like take into consideration of their advice, but like I said, don't change everything, because you are not them. They are their own, and they have a different set that they are writing into. Both of the professors I went into for the ones in America were science fiction writers, and one published primarily short stories and the other one published novels. So like I said, it does change. But do take like their advice on like how to like different ways of like writing, or like how to become a better critiquer, or how these things work. The other last professor I had, I took her advice in terms of like trying out new ways of outlining. My mirror next to me used to be covered in index cards when I was drafting my novel the first time. She also mentioned that really good authors she found, like in the beginning, had 3 to 4 drafts, because they were just beginning, but they got published and they were really good. Really great authors like Stephen King and all the ones you see, like who probably Cassandra Clare, go through at least 6 to 10 different drafts. And that's because they have a team. So like I said, like I doubt any of us will ever get to 6 to 10 writing on our own, but definitely go for like that 3 to 4, because I think that's a really good spot to start. And I have definitely seen changes in my writing just from the 3rd draft alone. And I think a lot of my friends have seen that change as well, which makes me nice and fuzzy. Like I said in the beginning, this class should better you as a critiquer and not a writer. Yes, you can have exercises that'll better like your writing style and make you see things and like make you pinpoint, like, you know, stop fucking using your goddamn adverbs. LYs are lazy ways of writing, I'm sorry. There are times when you can use them and times when you should just cut them the fuck out and just find a better way to explain it. It's lazy writing. Using very important is also very lazy. Very fast, lazy. Like those kind of things. But in terms of critiquing, that is where this class is supposed to make you better. You're supposed to be able to look at your work and see like, okay, so what is this work? Because like we all look at our writing and we're either too hard on ourselves or we're too lenient and we think we're better, which I think is more of the former than the latter. But what writing classes should do is help you sit down and look at your writing and think, okay, what about this do I like? What about this can I keep and I like it and I can make it even better than what it is now? And what about it do I dislike and can I cut out, or I have to like change to make it better and fit the overall whole? That is what a creative writing class should do. It should not sit there and turn you into the next Stephen King. It should turn you into, you should strive to be Stephen King's fucking editor, not Stephen King. Because Stephen King got better because his editor, he knows how to critique his stuff. And he also has an editor who can critique his stuff. But it shouldn't be, you should be striving to be Stephen King. Strive to be a very good editor for your stuff. And then you can, and then once you have that, like, once you have that process of yours tied down and you are, like, you know how to critique works, both your own and other people. Even today, I still critique people's essays. My friend sent me her short story, which eventually got published. Not saying that I had anything to do with it, but I did edit and give assistance. So it's just one of those things where, like, you need to know how to be an editor before you can be a good writer. And that's where creative writing classes come in. I think that also, like, creative writing classes will give you stronger skin, because it's one of those instances where, like, you see the bad reviews and you want to reply to it and you want to say, no, my story is good. No, you have to know that your story is good. You have to internalize it and just stick with it. And then when these bad insults keep coming that you know that aren't true about your novel, they're no big deal to you, because your skin is strong enough and you know the work that you have put out is a work that you're proud of. And that's really, I think that's all the advice that I can think of in terms of creative writing classes, and that's all of the information I have from said creative writing classes. So, but that is it for this video. I talked a lot, which isn't new. This is a very recent thing for me to talk consistently in front of a camera. Hopefully this video helped you out and like let you see like how creative writing classes are structured, how the advice that you should be taking, or like hopefully my advice will help you in some way, or make you realize that like this is something you need to take. I think that a creative writing class is important. I'm not saying that you always have to take one, but if you're not taking, like, say you're not a creative writing major or you don't have the room in your schedule, maybe find like a group of people who will critique your work for you. Like, you guys can go ahead and like switch out and do it that way. I know where I'm from, Barnes & Noble hosts like this like writer club every week where people come in and like share their work, and then they will go ahead and read it, and like you can get critique that way. Or if you need me to be a critique buddy, let me know in the comments or something, or find me on social media and message me, and I will go ahead and do that for you. I really don't mind. I like helping, just let me know. But if you guys want more of these kind of videos, or like how to deal with classes such as like really tough professors or really tough peers, that kind of stuff, let me know in the comments below, and I will talk to you guys in my next video. Hit like, subscribe, and I hope you guys had a wonderful week. Bye!